Dr. Umar, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Pan-Africanism, glad to be with you. Shout out to Toronto, Canada. One love.
As being African, if Drake identifies full-time as being African, despite his Jewish heritage, I don't have a problem with him. So now Kendrick got to do what Dr. Umar did and make that public statement, apologize if in any way I assaulted my Canadian African brothers and sisters, because this is just me going against Drake. It wasn't me going against Black Canada. You feel me?
I feel you.
He needs to do that for the sake of the race, to keep the peace. And I believe it was done to ingratiate Donald Trump to the voters. I do not believe that his life is in jeopardy.
No,
There's always tokens. Barack Obama was president. Kamala Harris was vice president. Clarence Thomas is on the Supreme Court. Don't give me individuals. How did we win? How many?
Fubu, Karkanai.
I'm getting out of here.
What?
Who the fuck wearing Fubu and Karkanai in 2020?
Podcast is brought to you by Marketer Hire.
Hello and welcome to Hustle Over Everything podcast. This is a podcast where we receive stories, tips, and tactics from entrepreneurs who have done it. I'm Alex, the owner of the show, and today we have a special show for you. We have the legend himself, King Consciousness, Dr. Umar. What's up, man? How are you doing?
Pan-Africanism, glad to be with you. Shout out to Toronto, Canada. One love.
Most definitely. So I want to start off getting right into it. Mm-hmm. What were you doing when you heard that there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump?
I believe my mother and I were watching a movie together on the television when it came through yesterday afternoon, I guess it was. Mm-hmm. And so immediately, I conducted a political analysis on the situation. And my political analysis led me to a couple of early theories on the so-called attempted assassination. A couple of things. Number one, when they tried to assassinate presidents, and although Donald Trump is not in office, he once was. And having ever been in office, you are guaranteed Secret Service protection at a level that supersedes other dignitaries. When they make assassinations, they don't miss. State-sponsored assassinations are extremely well-planned and organized, and they leave nothing to chance. And almost every state-sponsored assassination that this country has carried out, there were always backup shooters. If we look at the good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his state-sponsored assassination, probably the most well-orchestrated in American history. The primary shooter was a expert marksman from the Memphis Police Department. Mm-hmm. The backup shooters were Green Berets of the U.S. military. And the backup shooters rarely have knowledge of who the primary shooter is. They're normally under the assumption that they are the primary shooter because nothing could be left to chance. When we look at the 6 presidential assassination attempts in American history, you have President Abraham Lincoln, which was April of 1865. You have President Garfield, which was July 2nd, I believe, of 1881. You have President McKinley, which was in 1901. And then you have President John F. Kennedy, November 22nd, 1963. And then you have President Ronald Reagan, which took place on May 30th, 1981, I believe. And then you had what happened yesterday, former President Donald Trump on July the 13th of 2023. What is odd about these 6 presidential assassination attempts, 2 of which were unsuccessful, 4 that were successful? 3 of them were assassinated on a Friday, and 3 of them were assassinated or attempted to be assassinated on a Saturday. Nobody was shot on a Sunday. Nobody was shot on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. No one was shot on a Thursday. It was only Friday and Saturday. Donald Trump's attempted assassination was on a Saturday. Is it just a coincidence that President Ronald Reagan's assassination attempt was also on a Saturday? Is it a coincidence that both Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump were neither traditional politicians?
Ronald Reagan came over from Hollywood. Donald Trump came over from the business world. Is it also a coincidence that neither man was extremely popular, so to speak, when they were running for president initially, and the assassination attempts endeared them to many people who otherwise would not have supported them? In all of the four presidents who were assassinated, three of them were assassinated on a Friday. Lincoln was assassinated on a Friday. John F. Kennedy was assassinated on a Friday. William McKinley was assassinated on a Friday. Only President Garfield, July 2nd, 1881, was assassinated on a Saturday, as were the attempts made on Reagan and Trump. Are these coincidences? So what do I believe? I believe that this was not an attempt to take Donald Trump's life. I believe this was an attempt to endear Donald Trump to the American people so that the Republican National Committee and Convention could continue to carry out the martyr narrative that they have been using ever since Donald Trump was charged and convicted of a felony. So they are painting a picture to the American people that suggests the power structure doesn't want Donald Trump in office. And because he's being viewed as a martyr, it is increasing his black vote. It is increasing his white vote. And this latest debacle, if you would, scam that I would probably say, was also done by the American white power structure to further ingratiate Donald Trump to American voters who otherwise would not be thinking of casting a ballot for him. This was not an assassination attempt, excuse me. This was not an assassination attempt. This was a publicity campaign.
Okay. What's the significance of the Friday and Saturday? What do you think that significance is?
Well, one thing, we know that security tends to be laxed on Friday and Saturday. Mm-hmm. There's less bureaucratic activity on a Friday or Saturday. All of your government workers, mostly outside of essential workers, are home on Friday and Saturday. Basically, you have less eyes, you have less supervision, less surveillance, and less security. So whatever you're carrying it out, it's more effective to be done on Friday and Saturday. Those are the 2 days that a lot of folks, are thinking about something other than their job, than their work. And of course, Sunday is church. And very little takes place on Sunday out of respect for, religion. So Friday and Saturdays are the best days to carry out an assassination. And I would also argue, to underscore my position, that this was a publicity stunt to garner votes for Donald Trump by the power structure. And when I say power structure, I don't just mean the Republicans, because America is not ran by Democrats and Republicans. America is ran by the National Security Agency. America is ran by the Council on Foreign Relations. America is ran by the Trilateral Commission. America is ran by the Federal Reserve. America is ran by the Bilderbergers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys. That's who America is run by. The Democrats and Republicans are simply their arms and fingers. They are their feet. But the ultimate decisions are made by the shadow government that includes, but is not limited to, those secret bodies that I just mentioned. Let's go to Barack Obama. When President Barack Obama declared his run for president, and even during his reelection and during his entire campaign of the first term and during the second term as well, his life was threatened multiple times. President Obama received more death threats, I believe, than any president in American history, running and sitting. Not a single attempt on his life. There's no way you're going to convince me that someone who's receiving actual threats on their life doesn't get a single attempt in 2 terms, and Donald Trump gets one. I'm not buying that. This was a stunt, and the power structure's name is written all over it.
What do you think about the 2 people that lost their lives?
Collateral damage. America allowed Pearl Harbor to be bombed. They knew the Japanese were coming, and they let it happen because they needed to justify their involvement in World War II. America, any government, not just America, but we're talking about America. If you study the behavior of nations, it becomes necessary to sacrifice some of your own people in order to gain a larger reward. In other words, you might lose the battle on purpose so you can win the war. So I'm not surprised that there was only one casualty. America has killed way more of her people than that. Look at all the soldiers who died fighting Al Qaeda, so to speak. You know, look at all the soldiers who died in Afghanistan and Iraq and Kuwait for oil and drugs and access to international markets. They didn't die for liberty or justice or democracy. They died for power and privilege. You know, so America has a history. All governments are corrupt on the planet, okay? And all of them basically have a history of sacrificing their own lives in order to achieve their selfish ends.
So how do you think America is looking to the international community?
Assassination attempts are not foreign, I don't think, to any country. You know, our brothers and sisters on the African soil, they probably experienced the most assassination attempts per capita because of the general weak governmental structure that exists and the strong oversight and control that France, America, Great Britain, Belgium, Germany, and other countries has on Africa. That's what allows so many assassination attempts to take place on African soil, plus the fact that the ego of the Negro doesn't give us enough patience to wait for the next opportunity to run for office. We want people unseated right now, so we kill them in order to replace them. But with that being said, I don't think it's a shock because there hasn't been an attempt since 1981, Ronald Reagan. And I tell you what else is very interesting. The time between the assassination of President McKinley in 1881 and the assassination of President John F. Kennedy was 62 years. The space between JFK's assassination and Trump's assassination attempt was 62 years. I don't think that is a coincidence. That almost the same amount of time passed between McKinley and JFK's assassinations and JFK's and Trump fraudulent assassination. And it's been just under 25 years since Ronald Reagan's presidential assassination attempt. So I'm just saying all that to say that there's a structure to this, there's a rhythm to this, there's a system to this, and people who really study political science. I was a political science major.
Yeah.
Okay, so people really study political science. They'll see that if this was just some crazed person, first of all, if you understand how the Secret Service operates, how thoroughly they canvass and case out a situation. For example, most presidents have, what do we want to call them? Replicas of themselves. There's dummies for every president, right?
Yep.
I think they have about a dozen of them. People who look just like Donald Trump, they give them plastic surgery to look like Donald Trump. They dress them up and they send them into places where they think there's high threats to see if in fact, you know, there is a credible threat taking place at that time. So there's no way any shooter, if the Secret Service did their job, and I'm sure they did because again, he's a past president, possibly soon to be again. There's no way the Secret Service different canvassed that out. There's no way the FBI and CIA didn't do their job. There's no way Homeland Security had a breakdown. There's too many governmental agencies involved in the protection of the President of the United States, especially on domestic soil. There's no way this could happen if you really understand how thorough the United States government is in carrying out its responsibilities to protect the lives of American presidents. This was done by the power structure. And I believe it was done to ingratiate Donald Trump to the voters. I do not believe that his life is in jeopardy. If we look at Ronald Reagan, after he was shot, there was never again, to my knowledge, an attempt on his life. It was purely a publicity stunt. If they wanted Donald Trump
You
gone—
think Reagan was a publicity stunt as well?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because he didn't die. And they didn't come back to kill him again.
Gotcha.
They don't make mistakes. Malcolm's assassination, King's assassination.
Gotcha.
The U.S. government is responsible for killing the former president of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez. They killed Arafat. These are some of their unofficial assassinations. They do not make mistakes. If they want you dead, you die. Take the JFK assassination. The single bullet theory, even though that's the most popular theory of JFK's assassination in history, is completely incorrect. People who were there said that there was more than one shooter. There was more than one shooter because they leave nothing up to chance. If the power structure wanted Donald Trump dead, he'd be dead. He's not going anywhere.
God, have you ever tried hiring a social media manager, a Facebook ad manager, or anybody in marketing right now, the barrier of entry is extremely low. It's hard to find that 1% of people who are actually talented and have the experience to make it easy for you to plug and play in your business. That's where Marketer Hire comes in. Marketer Hire sources and vets the 1% of marketers across the world so you can have the best marketers for your business. They work with people like Netflix and YC companies. So if you're interested in having a marketer for your business, then check out Marketer Hire. Hit the link below in our description. This link will give you not $500, not $1,000, but $1,500 off your first try with a marketer. So you'll be able to see for yourself at a discounted rate. Tell me that doesn't make sense. Tell me it doesn't sound like a great deal. $1,500 off. Yeah. So hit the link in our description. Go find a marketer for yourself. Go find that social media marketer, TikTok marketer, a Facebook ads marketer, so you can drive more business to your business. All right, I've seen the episode. Let's get back to it.
All right, so let's pivot a bit. We're from Toronto, right? Shout out Toronto, shout out the Six. When it comes to the Drake and Kendrick situation, we talked about this a bit on the Breakfast Club, and Drake being called white, essentially. What's your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, as I said to my good brothers DJ Envy and Charlemagne 4 mornings ago, I'm going to have to do some more research, on Drake's political views as well as his racial identity. Being a psychologist, having many friends who are mixed race Africans, having done plenty of work with mixed race Africans, I understand that some of them are in complete denial of their Africanity. I know others are in complete support of their Africanity. And I know that still there are furthers who are not quite comfortable with either identity, so I have to see where Drake stands. I don't know how much his mother raised him with an understanding that you are a black man. I don't know how much his father may have raised him with a strong sense of African consciousness. Obviously, his father procreated with a white woman, so clearly he's not the proudest of black men, but yet and still, he could have tried to raise his son with a strong, black consciousness. So I'm going to do some research and look and see what Drake had to say himself. Some people accuse my good brother Charlemagne of not being honest in some of the things he said about Drake. I believe my brother to be completely honest, but in fairness to Drake, I have to see what he had to say out of his own mouth. Because when I heard some of the lyrics of Kendrick, and keep in mind, I don't follow either rapper closely. I don't really listen to anyone out of New School. Probably I listen to Meek Mill the most out of any modern artist because we're from the same neighborhood. Mm-hmm. But most of them, I don't follow them. I'm very much an 80s and 90s guy. We're only a few miles away from East Orange, Naughty by Nature, one of my greatest hip-hop rap groups of all time. Tretch, one of my favorite artists. Tupac, my #1 artist. I listen to the old stuff. I don't listen to none of this new stuff. So I don't know much about Drake or Kendrick, but I appreciate, the positive spin that Kendrick has on his music, and I can appreciate the success that Drake has had over time, but racially, where I stand with Drake, I have to do some research and see exactly, what he claims to be. As Envy and Charlemagne said, he's very clear that he's Jewish. And I don't have a problem with him being clear about the fact that his maternal lineage is Jewish. But my question is, are you also as unapologetic about your blackness as you are about your Jewish lineage? And if you're more proud to be a Jew than you are proud to be black, clearly Dr.Umar going to have some issues with you. I don't have a problem with him claiming to be Jewish because that's who he is. But is that what you're leading with? Because if that's what you're leading with, you're clearly not unapologetically African, and I probably will lose respect for you. With that being said, I did think Kendrick was a little hard when I first heard that, because I said we should not be dividing or separating out our mixed race brothers and sisters from the rest of us. I'm a Pan-Africanist, and in the tradition of Pan-Africanism, all of my Pan-Africanist forefathers, they all taught and stood for, as do I, the principle that all African people are of African heritage if they identify with being black full time. We've never discriminated against Africans who had a white mother or a black father, assuming that the other parent was indeed black. There was never an issue for us. I mentioned Bob Marley on the Breakfast Club. I can go to John Brown Russworm, who is probably the first prominent Pan-Africanist in history from Jamaica. He's the black man who started the first newspaper in this country a few miles away over in Manhattan, New York, with Samuel Cornish, called Freedom's Journal, 1827. That's the first black newspaper. He's one of the first black men to get a college degree in this country. He's one of the first Pan-Africanists to repatriate to Liberia, where he died, and he was of mixed race heritage. My number one Philadelphia ancestor, Robert Purvis, who was president of the Philadelphia Underground Railroad in the Anti-Vigilance Society. He's the brother who had the famous painting of Sin Q, the leader of the Amistad Rebellion. He had that done. His father was white. John Brown Russworm, his father was white. Bob Marley, his father was white. Yep. Bishop Henry McNeil Turner, the first black man to say God was black. He's one of the first elected officials to Georgia State House during Reconstruction. He was called Marcus Garvey before Marcus Garvey, and he died just before Marcus Garvey came to America. His father was white. So I have plenty of heroes. My ancestor, Frederick Douglass, and his half-brother and first cousin, my 4 times great-grandfather, Stephen Henry Bailey. Their fathers was white. So I don't come from a history where we practice discrimination or any form of bigotry against mixed race Africans. On the plantation, we was all one. Yeah, the slave master might use the yellow African or use their mixed race children, to serve them in the house. But at the end of the day, we was all NIWGAs to them. You know what I mean? So as long as you identify full-time as being African, if Drake identifies full-time as being African, despite his Jewish heritage, I don't have a problem with him. But if he has done things such as the blackface, which I did see, which I thought was definitely conduct unbecoming a black man. When you look at that blackface skit that Drake did, it does suggest that he's poking fun at black people and doesn't necessarily see himself as one of us. But as I asked Charlemagne, at what point in his life did he do that? It doesn't excuse him. Wrong is wrong. But if he did that when he was 18 and now he's in his 30s, maybe he's grown from that. He still owes the African race an apology for acting like a fool, but at the same time, I'm not going to outright dismiss him if that was done later in life, because we all have to overcome issues. We all suffer from post-traumatic slavery disease. We all suffer from post-traumatic colonization disorder, and I wouldn't want to hold Drake to a standard that I don't hold anyone else to. But if it is in fact proven, that he's identifies as a Jew and only identifies as a black man when it's convenient, then I would have to say that Kendrick Lamar, was definitely appropriate. And I think that Kendrick Lamar's lyrics and his verbal attacks, on Drake would be without question or without refutation if Drake is guilty. Then I would have to say Kendrick was within his right to expose him the way that he did, Yeah. But I want to see that, because I heard Not Like Us. And so when I'm listening to that, I'm like, wow, is Drake guilty of all these things Kendrick is accusing him of? And if he is, he needs to write the record with his people, meaning African people, not just Canadians and not just North American Africans, but the whole race. As a Pan-African, this is about all of us, not some of us, and Drake needs to clarify that. You know what I mean? So again, for me, the story is not yet closed, and my assessment on the Drake-Kendrick situation requires a little bit more study on my part.
So just a little background. I watched the whole Breakfast Club interview. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, during that segment, that was the only time of the entire interview that there was any sort of confusion.
Okay.
Right? There was confusion from Charlemagne because he didn't really know exactly how to answer your questions, because you did admit, first of all, that you don't listen to neither party very much, and that you don't know much of their history. So us being from Toronto, we know for a fact that Drake 100% is black. And
No. You know he's black.
That he identifies.
Does he identify?
No. I know 100%.
Because I know he's black.
I know 100% that Drake identifies as black. But he doesn't shy away from his Jewish culture, of course, because that's his mom. That raised him, but he definitely 100% identifies as black. And I just want to let you know that, because even in that interview, there was confusion on everyone's party. But I know.
The blackface,
yeah.
When did he do that?
I believe that he was like 8, 17,
And did
16.
he ever apologize for doing that?
I don't think that he publicly apologized.
Then
no.
he needs to.
Okay.
Because until he does, he's a coon in my book. Don't ever
So
disrespect.
I want to
to
go kind of deeper into that conversation around maybe people that aren't from America being considered black. A conversation that derives from this Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef is that people who aren't American are not black. That's been a conversation.
I've never heard that.
So I've
never experienced that.
It's huge. And even so, your Joe Budden interviews, because there was a part 1 and part 2. I'm a Patroni, so I watched both interviews as soon as they came out. You guys spoke a lot. You guys spoke about so many things, but the reason why I brought that up is because you went on that platform, and even Joe Budden, he's literally telling people that certain people are not black.
He didn't say that during our interview.
He didn't say that during your interview,
Okay.
but this has been a more recent
because
thing.
I wouldn't have accepted that. Yeah.
One of the people that he was speaking about was Tyla, the new artist from, I believe, South Africa. He said that she's not black. He said Drake's not black. He's just saying that a lot of
Now
different
with
people.
Tyla, and I don't know much about, I just seen something come across my screen. I believe she's a member of the colored community of South Africa.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, because they don't identify as black.
They don't, but I don't think she directly come out and said, I'm black, but she didn't.
But she needs to.
I don't
You
think
have
that
to be unapologetic.
Got you.
You understand?
Yeah.
We should not be sitting here
Yeah.
wondering if
If you're black.
she's clear, if she identifies. And then the other question I would have for the sister Tyla or for Drake, there should be no questions.
Yeah.
It should be so clear where you stand that there should be no questions from anybody.
Yeah.
And if there are questions, the fact that I even had to ask the question, even though I don't follow him a lot,
Got you.
means you haven't done enough to make it clear that you're a black man, because it should be unequivocal. You made it clear how much you're a Jew. That's fine. But guess what? Everybody knows Drake has identified as a Jew. You feel me?
Yeah.
There was no question about that. But there was a little bit of uncertainty about the black side. You guys being from Toronto, you're clear on it, which
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah.
But guess what? The world should be clear on it.
Yeah.
And if the world is not clear on it, then automatically a suspicion I would have as a neutral party. You understand?
Yeah.
As a Pan-Africanist, because I'm no more loyal to a Kendrick being born in America or Drake born in Canada, even if he is mixed race, because I'm a Pan-Africanist.
Yeah.
So all of us are equal. I care as much about the African in Angola as the one in Alabama, the one in Botswana as the one in Birmingham, the one in Toronto as the one in New York. It's no difference to me. One race.
Got you.
But with that being said, it automatically draws a suspicion as to whether or not you're identifying as black, just to make sure you don't alienate your potential customer base.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I
So if she
100%,
has identified as colored
Yeah.
her whole life, and now I'm saying I'm black
Yeah.
because I want to make sure I sell these records. You see, if Drake is saying I'm Jewish my whole life, but now I better say black
Yeah.
because as popular as I am, if I say I don't identify as black and I'm
Yeah.
only Jewish, I'm going to lose a lot of my fan base. Just like when Barack Obama ran for president of the United States.
Yeah.
He ran as a black man, but if you go through Obama's history and if you look at his books, he very much tried to live his life as a mixed race person as opposed to being black. You know what I mean?
100%.
So my thing with mixed race Africans, again, I don't see them as any different than the rest of us. They do have to make it clear where they stand, because there is a population of mixed race Africans who don't want to be called black. They very much identify as mixed race, which is a way of saying I'm a little bit different from y'all and I'm a little bit better from y'all. And I want to make sure I get those crumbs that fall from the table of white privilege whenever I get a chance to do so.
Yeah.
I had this conversation. I was in London. I was speaking at one of the Pan-African conferences, and there was a mixed race sister in there. And I had to explain to her in Manchester, England, that you are African, okay? And that's the only way we're going to deal with you. If you want to come to the Pan-African movement as mixed race, and that's how you want to be identified, we have no space for you, because this is for African people. We can respect the fact that you got a white mother, but you're black. And you need to also understand your white mother is not invited into this space. We will respect her as your mother, but she got to understand this is a black space. Your daughter could come, but you cannot. And that sister had difficulty swallowing that.
Yeah.
And she would be somebody who couldn't sit at the table, even though she's my sister, because she's confused in terms of her racial identity. She cannot be invited to the table.
So, and to go back into the Drake thing and the whole conversation around people that aren't from America not being black. So I just want to clarify that you disagree with that sentiment.
I completely disagree with it.
Okay.
So then,
And it ain't about being black, it's about being African, although we use the word black interchangeably. You understand?
Yeah.
Everybody on the planet who is a direct descendant of the continent is black, period. I don't care where you live. I've been to Toronto plenty of times. I've been to Montreal. I've been everywhere but Australia. You understand? African is African. One black parent or two. It's no difference with me.
Got you.
And I will say there are Pan-Africanists who are hypocritical. You know, I've been around Pan-Africanists where I could tell that they had some chauvinism against American Africans, or they had some chauvinism against European Africans, or they had some chauvinism against Caribbean Africans. So I know there's hypocrisy within the Pan-African movement.
Yeah.
I've experienced it myself.
Got
There's
you.
Pan-Africanists in the world who don't like the fact that I'm the most prominent Pan-Africanist in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't like it.
Yeah.
And when I'm in their party, I can feel the chauvinism. I can feel the bigotry. They won't speak on it because they get slapped down, you understand? But I can feel the envy. I can feel he's not quite African because he's a descendant of the enslaved African. You understand?
Gotcha.
So yes, there's bigotry within the Pan-African movement, but it's the job of those of us who are sincere about this to make sure we call it out.
Thank you for clearing that up, because during this whole beef, that was the first message that I heard, and I've been invested in it because.
But who said that? Now I know you said Joe Budden.
So Joe Budden's
Did
one of
anybody
the
else?
people that have definitely said that, but I'm looking at the conversation that are coming from just average everyday social media users. So
Okay.
I've gone viral a couple of times, one on his podcast, one on the podcast that you also reposted, regarding this whole Drake situation. And on his podcast, I got the Kendrick lovers, which means they're Drake haters.
Okay.
A lot of the comments that were being directed at me was, you're from Canada, first of all, so you have no knowledge on what we're really talking about.
Yeah.
And secondly, you're not black. That's what a lot of people
Wow.
are saying.
I've
And
never heard- wow.
So and that goes into hip hop itself. So you have been very outspoken specifically about Marcus Garvey, right?
Honorable Marcus Garvey. Yes.
The honorable Marcus Garvey, and he comes from Jamaica.
Yes.
Now hip hop itself, Kool Herc has been credited as pretty much the creator, alongside
He's
with
the
a couple
father of
people,
hip-hop.
the
And
father
he's
of hip hop,
Jamaican.
and he's Jamaican as well. So the same thing that they're using to kind of take away what would be my blackness as somebody who is Jamaican and Canadian, they're trying to use hip hop as kind of a thing to be against those people, which I don't understand, because it's created by somebody that's not from here, right? So the whole conversation around it gave me a little bit of an identity crisis, because I'm like, my whole entire life as a black guy growing up in Toronto, I very much identify with American culture because New York is right there. It's so close. So when I come around, I now just start to hear this conversation at 28 years old talking about, wait, like people that aren't black American aren't even black. It's just, it has me gone for
I
a
don't
loop.
agree with that. And you know, Kool Herc, who's a friend of mine, you know, he reaches out to me from time to time, nothing but love and respect for the elder. He is the father of hip hop. Now, there were other people present at that time,
Yes.
you know, who were without question,
Yes.
you know, the offspring of Africans who were forcibly brought here, you know, so it wasn't just exclusively a Jamaican creation.
For sure.
You understand? But to your point, what I think you're getting at is that Africans from every culture or from several cultures actually contributed to what we now, you know, consider to be hip hop. To me, the argument is much bigger though. And it's an argument of racial bigotry. And it is an argument of alienation that I think all of us, or many of us, because to my credit, I'm not guilty of this. But as I travel the world, I do see the schisms and the isms. I do see the cultural imperialism and the internal separation that we play against each other.
Yeah.
You know, even in countries, you know, I could think about when I went to Montreal and some of the things I heard about Toronto, you understand?
Yeah.
Or when I'm in Ghana, what I hear about Nigeria, or when I'm in Nigeria, what I hear about South Africa, when I'm in South Africa, what I might hear about Ethiopia, when I'm in Ethiopia, what I might hear about Somalia, you understand?
Yes, yes.
You know, so even in America, you have it. East Coast, West Coast. We
Yeah.
have a whole bunch of isms and schisms. And that's why we as Pan-Africanists, we believe in organization on the racial level. We believe that we are one people. That's all we stand for. So we don't get involved in all of that. Obviously, in America, we have certain social, quasi-political movements that seek to weaponize American African identity against other people. And I don't support them. But in their defense, a very mild defense, I understand where the energy comes from.
Okay.
Because American African people, we have created things
such as hip hop, that Africans around the world have taken advantage of and have done very well with, and they will turn around and disrespect American African people. Let's take Akon, right? Our brother Akon, who's from Senegal. He's done very well as a hip hop R&B artist. And when he's in Africa discussing American African people, he can speak very disrespectfully about the very people whose culture made you a millionaire. You understand? Yeah. So we have to also recognize that it's not just that American Africans have an issue with Africans from Toronto or Africans from the continent or Africans from the Caribbean. We have been insulted and we have been belittled and we have been degraded by Africans in other places because of our history of being an offspring of enslaved. And for me, it's no shame for me. Yeah. It's a badge of honor because I know what my ancestors did to bring that freedom. And I know that from the mind and the soul of the American African came so much that this world would never have if it wasn't for us. If it wasn't for the enslaved African, there would be no stoplights, there would be no gas masks, there would be no helicopters, there would be no internet, there would be no cell phone. These things came from black folks from the States. So I understand what we gave. But as a Pan-Africanist, I could never allow the bigotry that I still experience from Africans in other places, even being as popular as I am as Dr. Umar, but being a Pan-Africanist, I could never be so hypocritical as to let the psychological injuries that I have sustained from bigoted Africans around the world to manipulate me into weaponizing my identity against them as they have weaponized the identity against us. At the end of the day, it is Pan-Africanists versus everybody else. So beautiful. I rise above that bigotry in America. I'll rise above it if it's in Canada. I rise above it if it's in Africa. I rise above it if it's in the Caribbean. And I believe that's one of the reasons why I am so popular, because when people are around me, they feel it and it's genuine. I show no favoritism to nobody. If I'm going to Nigeria, I make it clear. I'm not siding with the Igbo or the Yoruba. Yeah. You understand? Yeah. If I'm going to Kenya, I make it clear. I'm not siding with the Maasai or the Kikuyu. Wherever I go, it's African people first. Yeah. That's what I'm dealing with. There's no Nigerian bone. There's no Toronto African bone. There's no Brazilian African bone. Yeah. We African. And that's all there is to it for me.
Beautiful.
Listen, the more subscribers we have, the better the guests get. So please hit subscribe. Let's get back into the show.
All right. Y'all, everybody from Toronto, you guys heard it straight from Dr. Umar. That they not like us, we're not accepted over here. I definitely thank you for clearing that up.
So you're saying when Kendrick says they not like us,
he's talking about us. Like literally me, I'm they.
Yeah, exactly. I got to do some research. No, definitely. I thought he was just talking about Drake as an individual.
No. He's talking about us, like black people that are not American, like me. My parent.
I didn't look at it like that.
That's what I'm saying though. Like that's the conversation.
Well. I didn't. That's the first time I've heard that.
Yes. Yeah.
Y'all misleading.
No.
Yeah. They not like us. It's not a virtual signal for Americans to dislike Canadians.
Bro.
But
listen.
Okay.
When he says they not like us.
Hold up. Give
wait. We gotta get. Wait.
Let him finish though, fellas.
Yeah. When they say they not like us, that is simply a battle between Kendrick and Drake. That's all it is. It is they not like us. It is simply the same thing as if you're on a basketball court and your team is up and you like, they not with us. They not with us. It's the same thing. Now I get that y'all are Canadian. I can see where, a hit against Drake might be like a personal sting, but we can't get lost in that, because then that goes right back to what Dr. Umar says, right? That letting a rap beef seep deeper into a culture that's already splintered is going to do far worse damage, right? So when Kendrick went in the studio and said they not like us, I don't want y'all to be out here thinking or put it out there that, that's Drake saying Canada blacks are not blacks. No. It is simply...
Hold up. You need to understand, Americans are coming through with that. Unequivocally, bro. Like 100%. If you look at, I can show you comments right now on our IG of guys saying, "Oh, you cheesing, fam?" Like literally.
Because that's a funny line from the song. But I also
think two things can be true at the same time. In other words, I believe it can be true that Kendrick, that's not his intent of his message. But at the same time, it can be true that his fan base is using it to push that other message. And so I believe then, for clarity's sake, Kendrick is going to have to clarify that.
Because it's one thing to have a beef with another artist, right? It's something else to feed into a cultural narrative that fosters division between brothers and sisters, right? And that would undermine the Pan-Africanist movement.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the first time when the they part, I'm kind of understanding what they're saying. But I'm hoping that what you're saying happens to be the truth. But
more or
Kendrick
less,
needs to clarify it.
Yeah.
And he also is going to need to rebuke his fan base for turning this into anything other than a beef between two artists.
Right.
Because we can't afford that to undermine the Pan-African unity that we have in the Western Hemisphere.
That's if he identifies as a Pan-Africanist.
It doesn't matter if he identifies as a Pan-Africanist. If he sees himself as a black man,
Right.
why would you not see them as your brothers and sisters as well? Because if you're going to say that, I'm Black American versus American African, you see.
Yeah.
If he says I'm Black American and I see myself completely different from Black Canadians, then he becomes a weapon of division.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that last part, which is super important if it exists, but Kendrick's never been on record. He's never been somewhere and said, well, I'm Black American. I don't know about them blacks over there.
I feel
he
you.
simply walked into, he got into a beef. He said, oh, you got this song? Well, I got this song. And you got this song? I got this song.
I'm with you.
And this song. So,
but now though, because the fan base has tried to turn it into something else, you now have to speak to it.
Right.
It's like if somebody tries, let me give you an example. A couple years ago, I beefed with a brother in the conscious community, right?
I know who you're talking about.
And when I went at him, I talked about him being a light-skinned supremacist, and you pale, and you albino, and when I go to Africa, everybody know I'm African because I'm deeply, right?
I remember.
I'm thinking this is just me and him. But guess what? My inbox started getting flooded up with light-skinned Africans. And I'm like, damn, Dr. Umar, you thinking you just going at him? But you offended all these other light-skinned Africans who love you too. You feel me? So guess what I had to do? I had to go public and make it clear that was just me in the moment, trying to get back at this one brother that as a Pan-Africanist, I do not do light-skin supremacy. I do not do dark-skin supremacy. I was simply coming at him because he was coming at me, which could be the same as Drake and Kendrick. So now Kendrick got to do what Dr. Umar did and make that public statement, apologize if in any way I assaulted my Canadian African brothers and sisters, because this is just me going against Drake. It wasn't me going against Black Canada. You feel me?
I feel you.
He needs to do that for the sake of the race, to keep the peace.
That's what's happening. That's what's happening.
I just wanted to add some.
But I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, thank you for putting that in there, because that's super important to the conversation, what you're saying, Mos. But unfortunately, it is the fan base, and it's also other artists, other rappers who have taken this beef on, who have been spreading that message. Joe Budden being one of them, because he's been...
Yeah, what exactly did Joe say?
Well, so
if you can
the
paraphrase
the conversation around what Joe Budden has been bringing up is the fact that because Drake has even come out and said it himself that he wasn't from the hood. Even in Canada, he's not from the hood.
Understood.
Right? And in the more recent years, he's been aligning himself with a lot more of the gangster-styled rappers, 21 Savage, Future, all these types of people. And he's been more aggressively on that side of things in the more recent years. And it's been a very, very hard effort from Joe Budden, Pusha T, Kendrick Lamar now to take Drake down. And the main thing that they go and they use against him is the fact that you're not from the hood. Like, you're not really gangster like that. You're not really like that. Especially
now, in fairness, they do the same thing for American rappers who are not from the hood.
That's 100% fact. Me? But the only difference...
So I could tolerate the hood thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though I don't think hip-hop should be about that narrative because there's enough blood being spilled on both sides of the border.
Yeah.
I could tolerate that. Yeah. But I cannot tolerate the he's not black. That's the part that bothers me.
Yeah, and it super bothers me too, and people from Toronto, because we don't have anybody else to actually speak on it. There's nobody that's prominent within the space from Canada that identifies with black people the way we do in Canada to actually come out and be like, hey, listen, we understand what you guys are saying, but it's also different here. We do things differently. We grew up differently.
And so let me ask you this.
Yeah.
And maybe he will at some point. Yeah. But one of my pushbacks would be, why hasn't Drake spoke to this and clarified that I'm a black man? And maybe he might.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure he saw my Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
So maybe he will clarify, but I think one of the things, at least for those of us who sincerely seek that unity with our brothers and sisters in other spaces, I need to hear from him who he is and what he stands for. And I also believe, again, Kendrick Lamar needs to clarify that he was going at Drake and not a whole people.
But a question on that, when it comes to being an artist, and maybe you can tap in about that as well, Mouse, but when it comes to being an artist, when you come out, like, obviously your skin color will say, okay, he's black. You can go look up and see their parents and say, okay, his mom is white, his dad's black, he's a rapper, I'm sure he identifies as black. What more? Because I haven't seen any other artists come out and say, hey guys, by the way, like, I'm black. I've never seen anybody ever do that. So what more does Drake have to do other than actually, first of all, like, being black himself, tapping in with...
Now you got to speak to it.
So, but,
one
but
of the
no other artist has done
unfortunate
that.
obligations of a mixed race African. I don't care if you Drake or the brother who lived down the street. You have to clarify your identity. That has been true for all mixed race Africans throughout history. Definitely in modern times, you have to clarify. You understand? Like, I had mixed race friends growing up. They had to clarify where they stood because it's going to be hard for black people to be comfortable with you if I don't know who you are in your mind. You see what I'm saying?
For sure.
We can't make the assumption that you identify as black because I know plenty of mixed race Africans who don't. And they will make it clear to you, I am not black. I am multiracial. In other words, I'm a little bit better than the rest of y'all. Don't include me. You understand? So Drake needs to do that. And the longer he takes to do it, for Dr. Umar, only speaking for myself, the longer he takes to do it, the more I'm going to be inclined to believe that Kendrick's accusations about him identifying as a Jew and only as a black man when it's convenient may be true. If I'm gonna be patient, he's a celebrity. He got a lot he got to deal with, but he gonna have to speak to that for me. You understand?
But I just want to. But I also do want to make it clear he's never actually done that though. I feel like because I saw in the Breakfast Club interview, Charlamagne kind of planted that he hasn't come out and said that he's black. But I feel like no artist, mixed race or not, has ever done that.
All mixed race people have to do it though. In other words, I'm not holding Drake to a different standard. If you're mixed race,
so that's your standard for mixed race artists, entertainers, come out and say.
That's period. It ain't even just my standard.
Yeah.
If you look at the political experience of mixed race black people, they have always had to make it clear to black people who they were. I've dated mixed race women. It's the same thing.
And would that have to be for you? Would that have to be a verbal statement, or would that have to be
how else
action?
would it? It got to be both. But it needs to be verbally declared. Because if you're saying I'm showing y'all I'm black, but I never said I was black, to me that's a cop out. That's a cop out. I'm showing y'all I'm black, but I'm never saying I'm black. Why in the hell wouldn't I say it with my mouth? It's the simplest, quickest thing to do.
But we've never seen any other mixed race artists come
How
up.
many mixed race artists do you got? Mariah Carey did it. Halle Berry did it. They had to come out and say it. Yes, they did. Yes, they do.
Really?
Okay, if you're saying that you saw that, then I'm gonna agree with you because you're saying that you saw that. So I can't say that it's wrong. But in more recent history, I've never seen a mixed race art like a rapper,
especially
come out and say
I'm black.
Well,
by the way, guys, I'm black.
Who? But here's my thing, especially given the mistrust that a lot of black people have towards mixed race, you have to declare it. Go to South Africa, right? If you grew up in the colored community, but you identify as a South African, as a black South African, you got to let black South Africa know. Otherwise, they're going to assume you're another one of the bougie light skins. You see what I'm saying? My thing is, it has such a positive effect to let people know you identify with them. Why would you go out of your way not to?
I don't think he's going out of his way not to. I think, matter of fact,
and that's it.
Yeah,
because you keep one thing, and you're not wrong for this. Because the thing is that you aren't actually very much informed on them specifically, like the new age artist. No, but you're not.
He's never told the world proudly. But I am a black man and I'm black first. The world needs to hear it.
But one
and
thing
the
that
longer he takes, the more I'm inclined to believe he's more of a Jew than a black man.
No, but no, that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. No, that's not fair. That's not fair. No, because what I think is that what that sounds like is that you're kind of putting something on somebody where culturally it makes sense to you, but culturally that might not make sense to somebody who's a black person that's raised in Toronto. That's not
No,
something
brother,
that
you're dealing with a Pan-Africanist who traveled the
No,
whole
no,
world.
of course,
You can't
of
use
course,
that on me. I know
of course.
Toronto.
But
I know culture in other places.
To make billions of dollars.
the same culture that he was raised on.
No. I just asked a question.
Yeah.
What culture did he use to make billions of dollars?
But you're saying
culture.
used as if he's not.
Asking a question.
No, he used black culture, but you're saying used as if he's not a part of the culture though.
Black
And all I'm saying is, why don't he declare he's a part of the culture?
Why do you think he hasn't declared?
Yeah, like,
so
What
his
do you
whole
mean? You
career.
either said it
But
unapologetically. If he said it, show me so I can.
No,
bring
but that's
up a
not
clip.
fair. That's not
Show
fair.
me
You know
a
why
clip.
that's not? You know why
It
that's
is fair.
No. You know why that's not fair? Because you keep saying that he used black culture, but black culture, if he's not a part of it, black culture has used Drake.
No.
What do you mean
no,
for
no.
what?
Because the music industry is dominated by Europeans.
Drake showed up 15 years.
But when Drake came in, right, and he's tapping in with all these different communities, and these people had these feelings about him, they still used him. What do you mean?
Who?
All the people.
A culture. Let me tell you something.
Why didn't Kendrick Lamar say no to Drake when he brought him on
The
his first tour?
benefit was bi-directional. I can agree with that.
That's what I'm saying.
As
yeah.
much as he gained, others received from him.
Yeah.
I can deal with that. But to his point,
Yeah.
the reason he's still speaking of Drake as being an outsider, he ain't made it clear he's an insider. That's what I'm saying. And
Okay,
you're dealing
all
with
right.
somebody
I got
who's
you. I got you.
political.
I'm not.
I
No,
ain't
yeah,
even
yeah,
into the hip hop.
yeah. And I'm not gonna argue with you on that because it is very much your culture. So
No, it ain't. It's global. When you are mixed race African, you
Yeah.
need to let people know. In Jamaica, if you mixed race African, you need to let people know. In Brazil, if you mixed race African, you need to let people. In New Jersey, if you mixed race African, you need to let people know. The rules don't differ because it's Drake. He got to play by the same rules as every other member of the African race. You understand? I don't have a stake in Kendrick or Drake.
Yeah.
I'm telling you from the outside as a political scientist and a Pan-Africanist, why would this man, as popular and successful as he is, not make it unapologetically clear to the world, I am a black African man?
okay, so this is new. This is new. I don't think it would, but this is new information. No, I don't think it would affect the bottom line.
At all.
I don't think it would at all because you're talking about the same person that's gone to Jamaica, gone to Africa.
White
gone
people
to,
go to Jamaica and
no,
go to
no, no,
Africa.
no. But wait, gone to Jamaica and Africa and tapped in with the people there and brought them to more of a worldwide stage. Although
Not-
white people have done that too, yes, white people, but to their benefit as well.
Okay, but just say you black. What's wrong?
Okay, no,
Why
no,
you-
I'm not saying that's not. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with saying you're black. That's for sure.
I think Drake
That's for
has
sure.
done a
He
lot in
showed
his
that-
career to show that he's black.
Exactly.
But
His
y'all
moves-
keep on defending the point
No.
that he hasn't unapologetically made it clear. How can you skip that?
Got you.
How can you skip that?
But you're teaching us that this is something that you would actually want to see. I feel like I've
Listen,
actually
in
never heard.
Pan-Africanism,
I've never heard the stats.
And
Yeah.
in Marcus
Yeah.
Garvey's Pan-Africanism in particular,
Yeah.
identity is critical.
Yeah.
You have to declare who you are and be proud of it.
Yeah.
That's the heart and soul of Garvey. That's why if you notice in my work, I don't deal with all this. I'm not from Africa. I'm Native American and I'm an indigenous and I'm an Aboriginal. I reject all that crap. Because first of all, the word Native American came from white people. The word indigenous came from white people. The word Aboriginal came from white people. The word African came from our ancestors. Predates Leo Africanos. That's a lie that a white man gave us Africa. Africa, those three syllables exist in ancient Kemetic sound, vowel, and language. That is our name.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But Drake needs to clarify. And with his father being from the United States, as far as I'm concerned, he could be considered an American African just born over there. But that ain't the point. The point is make it clear you a black man.
All right.
So we ain't got all these questions.
Okay,
Sure.
got you.
The way I look at it is
Make
That's
it clear,
like somebody
Drake.
accusing you of being a homosexual, and they say, "Well, he showed you he with girls. He showed you he go to the clubs." That don't mean nothing. He could still be. You see what I'm saying? So Drake needs to clarify
I don't know.
that
Okay,
he's
all
a
right.
black.
he has to come out and say, "All right, this is not."
All right, guys. By the way, I'm black.
Yes,
We said that. We said that.
people need to know your sexual. Yes, yes.
We said that 20 minutes ago. Yeah, Drake
All
needs to
right.
come out and say, "I'm black."
Okay.
Okay,
What's
so
wrong
okay,
with being
Drake.
unapologetic?
So okay, Drake needs. So we've clarified. Drake needs to come out and say that he's black, but also let's not skip. Kendrick needs to come out and clarify his
I
"they
agree.
not like us" statement because
I agree.
although that you have a perspective, Mouse, from maybe being like more on the inside and speaking to people that are like close to Kendrick or
that social media is a very small microcosm into what real people think.
for sure.
But still,
No,
though,
no,
if
for
his
sure.
fan base is coming that way, he
But-
got to address
yeah,
that.
and remember, like what I brought up to Dr. Umar before, like I've gone viral 2 times based on the Drake and Kendrick beef specifically. One was all Kendrick lovers, which means they're Drake haters. There was so many comments on that video. There's more comments than likes. There's like probably like 4,000 comments now on that video, and everybody is adding my
I
name.
need y'all to send me.
and
I
killing
want to watch. I want to see that later.
Okay, yeah.
Because I didn't know.
Yes.
So this is something I need to speak to. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Because like I said, we have these American African movements that weaponize American African identity against other Africans who come to the States, right?
Yeah.
They belittle them, they reject them, they attack them.
Yep.
Now, don't get me wrong. The African immigrants aren't innocent. Some of them do the same stuff, right?
Yep.
I don't want to see the same thing happen between American Africans and Canadian Africans, right? Because Canadian Africans, they my family. They ride hard with me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I see no difference, to be honest. I tell people, Canada, the 51st state, you want to
Yeah.
be honest.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I didn't know that this beef
Yes.
had those cultural implications.
Yes,
And I
they
wish
do.
I knew. When I did the interview on the Breakfast Club
I
the
wish
other
you
day.
knew too.
Because I would have spoke to it. I didn't know it was that
I
deep.
wish you
I
knew
thought it was
too.
just them too.
Yep.
You're saying
No.
that this
No.
is serving to undermine a relationship
Yes.
between 2 different African communities.
Yes.
That's not acceptable.
Gotcha.
They both need to deal with it.
Thank you very much for clearing that up.
Yeah.
Yes,
We
I didn't know
appreciate
that. I
that.
did not know that. I wish I knew because I would have spoke to it in that manner. I didn't
Beautiful.
know.
Beautiful. What's your opinion on what's going on in Jamaica? Between the Chinese in Jamaica and the cultural nuances that's happening in Jamaica right now.
I just got invited by IRE FM to keynote the Marcus Garvey celebration in Ocho Rios. Obviously, they just had a hurricane, and we want to send love and support to our Jamaican African brothers and sisters down on the island of Garvey and Marley. We hope all goes well, that there's a speedy recovery and reconstruction. And I'm hoping I get to make it down there because I have Costa Rica on the 16th and 17th. Jamaica wants 3 days, but I already gave Costa Rica the 16th and 17th for Garvey. So I'm waiting on Jamaica to see if they can just do the 1 day or we can table it and I can do all 3 days next year, God willing. But I've been to Jamaica several times, obviously. It's my #1 support island in the Caribbean. It's like a second home to me. I don't like the way in which the Jamaican government has allowed the Chinese to come in and take over. I believe they own the major port there. I believe that the Jamaican government has given them lands in exchange for services. I believe they built at least 1 hospital there, a couple of schools. They had constructed a north-south highway or northwest highway that connects one part of the island to the other, so you don't have to drive all the way around to get there, which was necessary. But from what I read, in exchange for them building the highway, the Jamaican government has allowed them to keep, I believe, nearly all of the toll fees on that highway for a certain amount of years. We're giving up too much to get too little. And what bothers me the most about Jamaica, they are the most Pan-Africanist and the most unapologetic of the Caribbean islands. And so if China can take Jamaica, taking the rest of the Caribbean won't be that difficult.
Yeah, breeze.
It's almost like with the migrant crisis in America. Once they take Chicago and New York, the rest of Black America doesn't stand a chance. So I'm hoping that, the Jamaican government begins to look in another direction, because this dependency on China is going to turn China into the global empire. To be honest, they pretty much are. When you look at the incursions in Africa, you look at the incursions in the Caribbean, you look at the incursions in Central and South America, for the most part, China is the superpower of the world.
Yeah.
The Europeans are hanging on by a strand. And with China's relationship with Russia, I doubt very much that the United States wants to go to war with them. With that being said, though, I think, speaking of elections, because America's is coming up soon, I think one of the things that the global white power structure has done to African people, it has brainwashed us into thinking we can get with a vote that you can only get with a gun. Black people have been brainwashed into thinking that democracy can replace war, and it can't. Nothing that you need for liberation you will ever get through a vote. I don't care if you live in Toronto, Montreal. I don't care if you live in Jamaica, Nigeria. I don't care if you live in Jersey, New York, Brazil, Barbados. What we need to do to get free will require bloodshed. We're not ready for it yet, but we're not even trying to prepare ourselves for it. If you think you're going to take back in peace what the white man spent 500 years taking in blood, you're living in a fairy tale. And one of the reasons that democracy is so effective of keeping black people in their place is they have manipulated us into thinking that you can literally vote your way out of oppression. You can't. There's going to have to be two revolutions. There's going to have to be a revolution to overthrow the black bourgeoisie, the Kun Illuminati. That's number one. If we don't fight the fight with our own gatekeepers, ain't no need to fight the fight with the white man. Yeah. That's number one. You got to get rid of the gatekeepers. Globally, you got to get rid of them in Canada. You got to get rid of them in Africa. You got to get rid of them in the States. You got to get rid of them everywhere. Once you overthrow the global black bourgeoisie, then you go to war with the white power structure. Now, don't get me wrong. We ain't there yet. We got a lot of organizing to do. We got a lot of psychological reconstruction we got to do. We got a lot of institution building we got to do. We're not there yet. Mm-hmm. Military conflict is the final stage of revolution, never the first. Never the first. So we got other steps we need to take, but we still need to be conscious of the fact, whether it be us or our great grandkids, blood will have to be shed, not only for the redemption of Africa, but for the redemption of African people.
Beautifully said. Going back into Jamaica real quick. So I'm Jamaican and I'm half Jamaican, half St. Vincent.
Yes, sir.
I identify mostly as Jamaican though.
I ain't been to St. Vincent yet.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful place. A majority of Toronto's black culture is Jamaican. Yep. Majority of it.
Just
right?
like in London.
Yeah, just like in London and similar to what New York was kind of back in the day. And what's your thoughts on Jamaica specifically as an island? And the reason why I want to ask you,
Jamaica.
The reason why I want to ask you is because I feel like you're so informed just about black people across the world. And I've been looking just more into myself lately and just wondering, like, how does such a small place impact the entire world so much? Because I don't think there's any country on the planet where you can go to any type of person and ask them about Jamaica and they not know. They know Bob Marley, they know something, they know weed, whatever it is.
Yes.
They know something about it. So what are your thoughts on Jamaica specifically and why you think that their culture is so popular across the planet?
Well, I believe that Jamaicans, and when you study the history of the Ma'afa, the transatlantic slave trade, many of those who were brought to Jamaica came from the Nigeria, Benin, Cameroon, Congo region. That is a very unapologetic fight to the death region. Mm-hmm. Some of the ethnic kingdoms in that region, the white man didn't even want to enslave them because it was too difficult to break them. Mm. Jamaicans still have that spirit. They are indomitable as a people. It's no coincidence that it was a Jamaican bookman who went to Haiti and led the Haitian Revolution. You understand? Mm-hmm. When you look at Nani, when you look at Cujo and Akon and all those revolutionary Jamaicans, it's no coincidence that they had so many revolutionaries on that island because they brought that African spirit that can never be broken. And if African people are going to be free geographically in the Caribbean or globally across the world, Jamaica will play a role in it. Just like when I go to Africa, I say it all the time. In order for Africa to be free, Nigeria will have to play a role in it because of their indomitable spirit. You can see that the Jamaicans and the Nigerians have the same blood. It's like, it's undeniable. So number one, that spirit of revolution. And then when you take the Rasta culture and what that did, and when you take Bob Marley's success and reggae and what that did, and of course the greatest Pan-Africanist and greatest organizer of all time, Marcus Garvey, coming from Jamaica and others, you understand. But I think when you look at their national heroes and the Pan-African impact that they had, Bob Marley was a Pan-Africanist. The Rastafari are Pan-Africanists. Marcus Garvey, the father of modern Pan-Africanism. John Brown Russworm, the revolutionaries that came out of there. Even to the slave revolt leaders, Sam Sharp, Paul Bogle. When you look at the Pan-Africanist nature that is at the foundation of the revolutionary Jamaican spirit, it helps you to understand why they are so feared and loved around the world. They're so unapologetic that when some people are trying to kick off revolutionary movements, if they're not sincere, they will screen for the Jamaicans. They want to make sure I don't have no Jamaicans in this, because I know when the Jamaicans come, they come to war. They come to fight. You don't invite the Jamaicans unless you're sincere. You understand? Because I would probably say per capita, you know, they're some of the greatest revolutionaries that the race has ever produced.
Wow. Thank you. I know the Jamaican people, especially in Toronto, are definitely going to appreciate that.
Oh,
yeah.
for sure.
And I think a lot of Jamaicans don't understand the gravity of what Marcus Garvey accomplished.
Oh, for sure.
You know, like,
I don't think most Africans do, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how big the UNIA was. You were part of that, right?
Yes, of course. I was Minister of Education.
Yeah.
And Toronto, for a long time, I don't know if it's still there, for a long time, the oldest continuously owned piece of Marcus Garvey real estate was in Toronto. They had a Liberty Hall there. There was an elder there. I met him many years ago, probably a decade ago. There was the two oldest pieces of property in the UNIA, if memory serves me correctly. When I was Minister of Education, we talked in 2004, 2005, so that's 20 years ago. But at that time, the two oldest pieces of Marcus Garvey real estate was a Liberty Hall in Toronto, or Montreal, but I think it was Toronto, and the Liberty Hall in North Philadelphia, which still stands.
how big is the UNI?
I don't know the numbers now, because although I'm still a member of the Detroit division, I don't really participate as much as I used to, because there's a lot of internal dynamics there that I don't really want to be a part of, you know. But out of my love for Garvey and love for the UNIA and what it meant to African people, I do still belong and do my work through Detroit. I don't really know the numbers right now, but historically,
but
at its height,
ballpark though. Like,
I can't even guesstimate.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the President General of the UNIA, he's based in New York City. You know, you could look him up. But historically, though, the Garvey movement had no less than 13 million that were accounted for at one time. By the way, that's 13 million at one time. It's the largest black organization in modern history. And to the Honorable Marcus Garvey's credit, he's the only leader of a mass movement post-slavery that did not have to use religion to keep black people's attention.
That's perfect. Can we go into the religious topic there, based off of that?
Go ahead.
So you've been kind of very outspoken about like religious leaders. I think specifically in the Joe Budden Patreon episodes,
So he did release both episodes.
They were
second
both
one is out?
Yes, the second
Okay.
one, and
'Cause
that was a
somebody
while
texted
ago.
me the other day and said, why Joe Budden ain't released part 2?
So maybe that's on YouTube, but I have Joe Budden's Patreon.
And on the Patreon, the whole interview can be seen.
I watched both the interviews. It's
Gotcha.
part 1 and
Thank
part
you.
2.
Okay, so I can let them know it's out there.
Yes. So and you specifically called religious leaders or I think you were specifically talking about pastors. Maybe the ones that you've experienced. I'm not sure if you were being general when you were saying it, but you called them kind of narcissists. You said they're doing it a lot of the time for their own to fulfill their egos. Is that based on your experience, or is that something that you believe as a whole? And I'll go into something a little bit. My dad's a pastor, and I've specifically watched him my entire life. He became a pastor, I believe, 2 years before I was born. And I watched him my entire life not be that person, not be the narcissist, not do it for the money, and really be, first of all, an activist within my community in Toronto, and actually helping people. One thing that you talk about a lot is building institutions, and he's definitely not been able to build a building as an institution, but he himself has been an institution for people.
Gotcha.
Whether it's religious, whether it's if you need groceries and you're broke, he's done that for people. He's done everything. So when you speak about pastors like that, is that based on your experience, or is that based on something that you think is a general thing? Like, do you think that
It's
for
based
everybody?
on my study
Yeah.
of the institution of religion amongst African people all around the world, historically and in modern times.
Gotcha.
So there are exceptions to the rule. Okay, my 4 times great grand uncle, a gentleman by the name of Bishop Henry. Excuse me, I'm confusing Bishop Henry Turner with Bishop Alexander Wayman. Okay, so Bishop Alexander Wayman, who was the 7th bishop under Richard Allen in the African and Methodist Episcopal Church. That is my 4 times great grand uncle. My 3 times great grandfather was married to his niece, my grandmother Annie Wayman. Okay, he was a manager of the Philadelphia Underground Railroad. He fought against slavery. I believe he helped recruit for the Civil War. He was a preacher. Bishop Henry McNeil Turner was a race man and a preacher. Most of my Pan-Africanist forefathers were pastors. Henry Highland Garnett, pastor. Alexander Crummell, pastor. Henry McNeil Turner, pastor. Edward Wilmot Blyden, pastor. You follow me?
Yeah.
So I don't have an issue with the church because my Pan-Africanist forefathers were of the church. Yeah. My issue is the way in which the black church has been reconstructed in modern time, right? Into an institution of exploitation, no longer an institution of salvation. In other words, pastors and politicians are no longer what they used to be for black people in this world, right? And when you look at the church, it almost deifies poverty. It almost deifies powerlessness. The way in which religion is taught to black people makes them comfortable being oppressed. It no longer has a revolutionary spirit because remember, religion was at the heart of the Haitian Revolution, but it was African religion. Dr. King was a pastor. Malcolm was a Muslim. You see, so we've seen where religion was used as a revolutionary force. But how long has it been since we've seen religion be used as a revolutionary force? In my opinion, religion takes three things from black people we cannot afford to waste: too much of our time, too much of our money, and too much of our hope and energy. The reason why governments are not afraid of black religion anymore, because black religion protects the government by evangelicizing oppression as if it's coming from God and not the white man. In other words, we got to wait on God to fix our problems as opposed to rising up against the white power structure and crushing it. How many black preachers can we say in Toronto right now or Montreal right now? How many pastors can you look to that are fighting against the miseducation system in Canada? Fighting against, and I've seen the unemployment, fighting against the mass incarceration. It's almost like here in America.
It definitely is.
Look at the major problems we have in Canada. Show me a black church that's at the forefront, not participating, because anybody could go to a meeting. Anybody could join a march. Anybody could show up to a press conference. Show me a church that's at the forefront. I'm the leader. We're going to fix these schools. I'm the leader. We're going to get economic justice. You can't find them, just like we can't find them here, just like you can't find them in Africa. The black church is no longer a vanguard organization. It is a parasite. It is a spiritual parasite until it goes back to its traditional role. Remember now, historically, we fought the KKK through the church. We got jobs through the church. We buried our dead through the church. Life insurance through the church. The black church was the Walmart of the black community. Whatever you needed, they had it. What happened to that? The black church is now serving itself. It's no longer serving God.
And do you believe that, is that specifically with Christianity, or do you think that of other religions as well?
Parasitic. Now, Christianity is the most capitalist-minded of the religions. Islam is not as capitalist-minded, but guess what? It is still anti-revolutionary. It is still anti-African culture in many regards. I was raised Muslim. Philadelphia has the largest percentage of African-American Sunni Orthodox Muslims in the United States. Dearborn has the most Muslims overall, but they Arab. If you're dealing with American Africans, non-Nation of Islam, Orthodox Muslim, Philadelphia has more than any city in America. I was raised in it. I was raised in the very masjid that I believe the Nation of Islam used to own. You understand? Before W. Warithuddin Muhammad took over his father's organization, shut that down, and came with the American Muslim movement. I was raised in one of those mosques. You understand? But I had to walk away because I saw how we completely ignored black people's problems. We completely ignored black culture. We completely ignored the black reality. It was all Islam. Learn your Arabic. And I'm like, I'm a practicing Arab. I'm not practicing Islam. I'm practicing Arabism. Why do I got to learn Arab language to worship God? Why do I got to eat like the Arab to worship God? Why do I got to dress like the Arab to worship God? This is not the worship of God. This is the deification of Arabic culture. And that's why I walked away from it. And now African spirituality is my foundation. But that would have never happened had I never go to Africa in 2005 and go into that Goree Island slave dungeon. And them ancestors literally grabbed me that day. And I went through a whole spiritual renaissance in my hotel room literally that day. And that's what brought me to African spirituality. I speak in churches all the time. I have nothing against the church. There are some who do some good things. But as a system, black religion, I don't care if you're talking Islam, Christianity, Judaism, black religion as a whole, Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, even African spirituality to an extent. They have pushed colorblind philosophy on black people to our own detriment. Every problem that the white man has introduced into the black community, the black church has taken that problem, evangelicized it in a way that makes black people think it either ain't that bad or there's nothing they can do about it until Jesus comes. That's slave time religion. And my issue with black religion is my same issue with black politics. Why are we still engaging in the same religious culture we engaged in on the plantation? See, on the plantation, all you could do was pray to God because you was in chains. God had to solve your problems. You weren't allowed to do shit. Now you $2 trillion in America, at least half as much in Canada. You understand? You got enough revenue to do something for yourself now, but we still on hands and knees begging God. Part of the science of prayer, as I teach, you pray for what you can't do. You never pray for what you can do. To pray for what you can do is an insult against the Creator. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Too often we're praying for what we can do. God ain't gonna respond to you. Why would God respond to you when you got the ability to do it yourself? To ask of the Creator to do something for you that you can do yourself is to make a mockery of the Most High.
So would you say that you're looking for kind of just more of an advancement of what that old culture is around a
looking for a
religion, like progression?
reconstruction.
Okay,
It needs to be
reconstruction.
reconstructed.
Reconstruction.
And to your point that you opened up with,
Yeah.
I do believe that 99.9% of all religious leaders are in it for themselves.
Got you.
I look at all the brothers I know who went to jail, came out, opened up a church because it was the only hustle that was there. You know, I look at all the politicians who fell from grace, you know, or celebrities fell from grace, opened up a church because it was the only hustle that was available. You know what I mean? Like, we have to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, although there are some people who go into the ministry for the purpose of serving the Lord, most people go into politics and religion to serve themselves.
Got you. Okay.
In equal numbers, you think in equal numbers, people going to politics at the equal number or equal rate as people going into religion to serve themselves?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
And if you disagree with that, show me a concrete, practical benefit of black religion in Canada that our people have realized in the past 30 years, something significant.
I'd say Crawford. So Crawford Adventist Church.
So what have they done? Give me the result. I don't need
The
to know
result. So basically, there's a school in Toronto called Crawford. I went to the school.
Okay.
95% black.
Okay.
Some people at the school, black teachers as well, and they have about a 95% graduation rate.
Okay.
As well.
How long has Crawford been in existence?
Well over 30 years.
Okay. And how many students go to the school?
Adventist school. From grade 1 to 12, I'd say about 200 to 300 kids.
I appreciate the fact that they have a school,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering now, after 30 years, why do you only have one school? My second question to you, do I have to be a Christian to go to that school?
No.
Okay. Okay. Then I can live with that, but they should have more than one by now.
So I think the challenge is they're Adventist, and there's a bit of bureaucracy between the channels of the Adventist like board. You know,
Okay.
so I think they're kind of dealing with that.
Yeah, they're not big enough they're just not big enough or popular enough to actually do that, whereas
Why are
Catholic
they
schools
still
are
under the
everywhere.
Adventist umbrella? The Adventist is a white congregation.
That's the challenge.
Why are they
And,
under it?
and what's happening is that there's an Adventist.
Be unapologetically African.
Facts.
Facts, yeah.
Facts.
Yeah, they're dealing with that right now. Shout out to Crawford. Shout out to everybody who went to Crawford. Speaking of, actually, there's a lot of success stories out of that. Matter of fact, all of the other school, Kingsway College, is where Daniel Caesar came from.
Okay.
But
Now,
yeah.
and salute the Crawford for the school, because
Yeah.
that's a relevant institution.
Yep.
Now, give me a church that's involved in some serious political agitation against police brutality, gentrification, economic genocide, mass incarceration, miseducation.
Okay, so I'd say Scarborough SDA. They have a prison program that they do, where they go into the prisons and
I ain't talking about no prison ministry.
Okay.
What are they doing to fight against the system of mass incarceration?
We're trying. We're trying. We're trying, bro. We're trying. We're trying. Now we're trying. Honestly though, but it's what you're saying though is very important
I
because
just want y'all to see my point.
yeah.
I'm not saying categorically
Yeah.
every black church is a scam.
Yeah.
I'm saying categorically
Yeah.
the exceptions are few.
And that's why I'm happy you're kind of going into it, because when you're on these interviews, and I've been watching for a very long time, like since high school time. I've been graduated high school for more than 10 years. I've been watching for a long time. But I find that when you go into certain things, you say it, and then the interviewer has so many questions. For example, like Charlemagne the other day, there's so many questions.
We get an hour of power.
It doesn't give you enough time to actually go
Correct,
into
correct.
it. And especially with a place like Canada, where if I watch your interview, you're going to 100%, like maybe 99.9% be talking to an American broadcast. And you go into American politics and American culture. So you speaking like that in regards to Canada is important because we need a perspective from somebody like you who is well researched to actually give your opinion. So that's why I'm happy that you're actually diving into it. We're giving you a second to actually go and people can learn from it and
Yes,
actually
sir.
understand what you mean because you're very entertaining and they're going to remember the loudness and the whatever it is.
said the loudness.
But they're not going to actually get to listen to what you're
feel
saying.
you.
You know what I
I
mean?
feel
So
you about
thank you for actually breaking that down
feel you.
and speaking so eloquently.
Yeah,
And I'm looking forward to getting back to Canada. I think October 5th and 6th
Yeah.
is what we're shooting for right now. So
Yeah, definitely come out there. Like your name is so popular out there. I feel like, and I want to kind of dive into. I don't know if you're ready for that, but I want to go into kind of like your social media personality,
Okay.
and your personality outside of what you actually are standing for. Because
Okay.
I find with you that you're an amazing marketer, and you're amazing at getting
accident.
By accident, because I
It's
can
purely
tell that it's
accidental.
actually you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not you're putting on a performance.
like I didn't know about TikTok until people made me get on TikTok because
Yeah.
they said you all over TikTok. I said, what is TikTok?
There will
They said
be-
you better get on there. You got like a 20,000 memes. You better gifts and so I got
Yeah.
on TikTok because I was forced to because everybody kept saying you need to get on TikTok and I saw all the fake pages in my name. There's somebody with a 3 million follower page on TikTok.
Oh my God.
Called Prince of Pana, and it's nothing but Dr.Umar clips. And TikTok won't transfer over to me my damn page with all my. You know what I mean? So,
Well, so with you on social media, you're such a known person. Like I feel like anytime there's any situation that has to do with an interracial couple, or
hands
anything
down.
interracial,
Hands down.
it's at Dr. Umar. I've
comes
done
the
it.
Undertaker
I've done it.
music.
yeah.
Here comes the Undertaker music.
Yeah,
What's your opinion on being a meme, man?
what do you think about that?
It's a double-edged sword. It's
Yeah.
a double-edged sword because I wouldn't be as popular as I am if it weren't for the goofy shit.
Yeah.
Right? So I do appreciate and understand how the memes and the gifs have made me, to some respects, a household name.
Yes.
But at the flip side, I think too much of the sensationalism undermines the seriousness of my mission and my work.
Yeah.
Right? Like the people who look at the memes, I don't know if they know that I get death threats on a regular basis. I don't know if they know sometimes I got to wear disguises when I go certain places. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't think they really understand that this man is a whole activist, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the entertainment aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes I lose out on the seriousness because of the silliness.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, here we go again with the balance. The silliness has brought me a much younger audience. Yeah. In the way I see it, I see the silliness as a fishing net.
Yeah.
I catch them with it. And then when they come to me, they going to get this garbage.
Yeah,
You see what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah, for sure.
And so it's the gift and the curse.
Yeah.
You got to take both worlds.
And I told you, I've been watching your content from high school, and that's how I got familiar with you. It was from, whatever happened, it was funny.
Yeah.
And then I got to actually hear your message and how you speak and what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
But
But I also
definitely,
think it's fortuitous too. And what I mean by saying that is there's no way on earth somebody could tell me Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad or El Hajj Malik El Shabazz Malcolm X or the Honorable Marcus Garvey or even Kwame Nkrumah or Patrice Lumumba. Nobody could tell me that them with their serious revolutionary messages could end up being one of the hottest topics on children's social media platforms, like a TikTok or a Snapchat, right? So for me, I believe there had to be some divine design into that because I clearly wasn't looking for it, didn't know how to do it, you understand, or bring it about. It was purely organic. So for me, I'm going to the spiritual a little bit here, but for me, as you know, I'm working on a school. And I want to put them schools everywhere. Canada needs some too, right? I believe that the universe has given me this platform in preparation for whatever my next assignment is going to be. The school piece is still there. That's an assignment. And I'm going to build the schools. But I still think there's something else that the ancestors want from me. And I believe this large platform that I have, I believe it's a revolution in waiting. You understand?
I'm just waiting for the orders from the universe. What do you want me to do with all these young people? Because I got them. I got them.
Definitely.
You know, I have mothers today. I bet you there's going to be a mother who comes up to me with their 8-year-old son and say, my son made me come see you. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even know you. My 8-year-old son said, I need to go see Dr. Umar. You know what I mean? So I got all these young people, and every day I'm just praying and asking, how do I flip this into a movement? Because if I can flip all them into and I got them globally.
Yep.
What can I do with them? Because I don't think there's ever been a Black consciousness personality, definitely not one with the credentials that I have, to be this successful amongst young people. Like, all of our greats had young followers, but I don't think nobody has the under 30 or under 20 following that I got. I think it's unprecedented, but that's not enough though. I got to do something with them.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm waiting on my next assignment.